right, everyone. Well, this is good. We have a good showing here. So a few more people may get on after they've gotten whatever they need to get. But we've got an agenda that Holly will run through later on. David is going to start us out. So there's David. I'm going to spotlight David to start us out, and we'll get going. Everybody ready? Okay, excellent. David, kick us off.
Welcome all to this annual meeting of the Cleveland Park Christian Church. And today you're going to hear from a lot of good people explaining what the situation and the hopes of the church are, and inviting you to offer your votes, but also your questions and suggestions on the various things that are brought up. We'll begin by Pastor Ellen leading us in prayer.
Thank you, David. And I love, that's Narcissus next to you, the flowers.
Yeah, that is.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And I know they smell as good as they look. So everyone, I ask you to just together with me, breathe in the breath of God and life. Breathe out deeply. As we come together this morning as a church community, I pray that we will remember what our mission is: to nurture love of God and love of neighbor in the world. And I invite you with me to breathe in the love of God. Receive it in every part of your being, and breathe out love for your neighbor. Breathe in the love of God. Breathe out love of neighbor. Breathe in love of God. Receive it in every part of your being. And breathe out love for your neighbor. I pray that this morning, God's wisdom and guidance will be with us, and that we will hold this love that God gives us and allow it to transform the way that we reach out to one another. Amen. Back to you, David.
Thank you. I'm here rejoicing at becoming a past moderator and in welcoming all the good people who are taking on the new offices that are necessary in the church. I was very reluctant about becoming a moderator, and I think probably I was wise in my reluctance, but Lisa has helped me, as she promised to keep me in line, and I have appreciated this year in which I think the church has done a very good job for keeping, despite the threats and the brutality of COVID, alive the spiritual and the social obligations that the church has, and has also kept alive the closeness between people, in some ways perhaps improved it for some, and I think we all should be grateful for that. I enjoyed, as moderator, writing memos, talking about the origins of our church, and becoming more familiar with people whom I deeply admired for their spiritual and emotional and intellectual intensity, and where I became aware of something I hadn't thought of before, that the world of the early 17th century, where everyone believed there was one true religion, turned into, by the beginning of the 18th century, an established church, but established church in a society that was tolerant of all religious beliefs and accepting of their right to follow their particular paths. Um, I'm glad also to welcome Holly into the role of moderator. I'm sure she'll do a wonderful job. And to talk about her a little bit more, our competent, very competent past moderator, Carol Rogers, will introduce her.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for those words, David and Carol. Thank you.
Yes, well, I'm not prepared to give a long introduction to Holly because we all know her as an active and central part of our church community. But as the almost past moderator, it's my pleasure to officially nominate her for election to the position of moderator. And so I would entertain a second for that nomination.
Second.
Damaruka seconds.
Excellent. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Well, congratulations, Holly, and welcome into the official position of moderator. And I'll now turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you, David. On behalf of Cleveland Park Congregational United Church of Christ, I want to thank you for your service as moderator this past year, particularly your moderator memos on our church's Puritan roots. As the cosmologist Carl Sagan once said, you have to know the past to understand the future. So thank you for helping us to understand our denomination's past as we navigated an unexpected and often surreal present moment. Thank you to Pastor Ellen, our incredible staff, leadership team, and committee folks for making a really weird year go as smoothly as it did. Now, more than ever, I am grateful for this church community and the good work we do. While many aspects of our lives have been uncertain, this church has remained a steadfast, loving, safe, albeit virtual space to deepen connections, reflect on past, present, and future, and do good work in our community. Our mission to nurture love of God and love of neighbor in the world is alive and well. Thank you to each of you for making this a reality, especially in such a time as this. If we have not met, my name is Holly Hancock, although you may now call me Moderator Hancock. Just kidding, Holly is fine. I am grateful to this community for calling people from all walks of life into church ministry. It is not lost on me that you are trusting a female millennial with an important lay leadership position. Thank you for this opportunity to serve. My learning curve is steep, and I might not always get everything right the first time, but you have my promise to listen more than speak, work hard as well as smart, and act in our congregation's best interests. Aspects of the annual meeting include some parliamentary procedure parlance that are new to me. Please forgive me if I misstep in our voting procedures. I trust someone will speak up if I leave something out. Carol Rogers graciously met with me this week to go over the agenda, and she told me if I mess up to tell everyone it's her fault, so I'm sticking with that. Thank you, Carol. You each received the church agenda and annual meeting in email form, and I also posted it in the chat. Please take a moment to look through the agenda if you have not already. If you have something for church business, please raise it now by writing it in the chat. And I want to make note, I was at an embodied social justice conference on Zoom this weekend where they purposely stopped the chat during the meeting so that we could be fully present with one another. We're not going to do that, but I would encourage you, if someone else is speaking, it might not be the best time to like write out your thoughts as a way to share your thoughts rather than listening to them. So let's use the chat as well as our voices as a way to listen to one another rather than using the chat as a way to speak over one another. If you do have business, I encourage you to put it in the chat publicly. Of course, if there's something private that you only like want me or Pastor Ellen to know about, you can message us directly, but otherwise just put it so everyone can see, and we'll make sure to get to that. As we just went over with Carol, voting will be a little bit different this year because we're on Zoom. The way that I envision it going is that when I'm going to ask if I have a motion to approve XYZ, somebody can unmute and say yes. If I have a second, somebody can unmute to say second. And then for the voting, when I say either all in favor, all opposed, or any abstentions, I would encourage you to raise your hand at the appropriate time so that we don't have to all be muting, unmuting, muting, unmuting the whole time. If you are off camera, you can either raise your virtual Zoom hand, which you would find by hitting the reactions button, or you can just type it in the chat. And especially if you were voting opposed or an abstention to a largely approved measure, I'd encourage you to write that in the chat just so that we can note.
Can I make a recommendation? And I only know this because I recently became the president of a small nonprofit, and I read through the Robert's Rules of Orders very thoroughly. You can do this slightly differently in voting. You can ask if there are any objections to the motion. And if nobody objects, you can say, hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, so that you don't have to do this hand raising for all. Then, if there are objections, then you count the number of objections. And I'm actually keeping track of the number of who's here. So we'll have a total number and we can just subtract objections from the total number so we can get our approvals if we need that, okay? That way you don't have to do the on and off and voting in favor of.
That makes sense. Thank you, Serena. So can I just repeat that back to you to make sure that I understand properly?
Yes.
Go may have a motion for X. Do I have a second? And then and is there any discussion? And then rather than saying all in favor, I'm going to say, are there any objections?
Yes, objections or corrections or whatever, and then
perfect.
And then hearing none, the motion is approved. Whatever. Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, I think that's about it. Let's now begin our items for the congregation. All right. So our first action item is the approval of a 2-minute speaker limit. This regards respecting everyone's right to be heard and everyone's right to go out and play out in the snow before nightfall. We have a goal to finish the meeting by 1:30. So we like to encourage people to keep their concerns short, sweet, and to the point. We propose a 2-minute speaker limit for those raising discussion on voting items. If you have a concern with part of the treasurer report, for example, we ask that you do your best to be concise and keep your speaking time to 2 minutes, ensuring anyone interested gets the time to share, and ensuring we respect one another's time and energy. I will be our spiritual timekeeper during the annual meeting. If you go over 2 minutes in your share, I will politely name the 2-minute limit and ask you to wrap up your thoughts. This time limit is not meant to be restrictive or mean in spirit. I won't be cutting you off exactly at 2 minutes, just encouraging you to be mindful. And I again want to emphasize that while the chat is a wonderful tool, I don't want to use that as a way that we circumvent sharing auditorily by speaking. So with that in mind, may I have a motion to approve a 2-minute speaker limit?
So moved.
Thank you, Dick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion? And if there is discussion, this is your only opportunity to go for 10 minutes because we haven't voted on it. Okay. Are there any objections? Okay, great. Are there any abstentions? Wonderful. So the motion carries. So for any discussion today, we will be abiding by a 2-minute speaker limit. Thank you all. Next, I'd like to direct your attention to the 2020 annual meeting minutes, which can be found on page 4 of the 2020 annual report. Alan has already sent me 2 additions. One is to note the November 15th outdoor worship service that we had. I'm sorry, and the other one we'll get to later because it involves the capital campaign. And Don Blanchard, I'm going to message you about that. All right. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, great. Are there any, well, I should say, may I have a motion to approve the 2020 annual meeting minutes?
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Is there any discussion? Okay. Are there any objections? Great. Okay.
Hey,
So,
Holly, apologies. I lost internet, so I lost the last 5 minutes. And if someone wouldn't mind emailing me the link, because I don't, for some reason, get the weekly links. So I tried to go into an old link and didn't have it. So if someone wouldn't mind emailing that to me, that way, if I need to go to my phone, I can do that.
yes.
Okay. And so apologies if you could just recap what we just covered, because I heard a motion.
Yes. Were you there for our 2-minute speaker limit?
No.
Okay, great. So, and for those wondering, Margaret is our beloved clerk, so she is very much writing this out for note-taking purposes. Thank you again, Margaret.
Yeah.
So, Margaret, we have approved a 2-minute speaker limit.
Okay.
There were
Got
no
it.
objections.
And Margaret, I am forwarding you the link to the service in case you need to get back on.
Okay, it needs to come via email. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And then Margaret, we are currently on the approval of the 2020 annual meeting minutes. We had a motion, we had a second. We also want to include or add a November 15th outdoor, just a note that we had a November 15th outdoor worship service. That was fabulous. All right. And so then
So who nominated and who seconded the approval of the annual meeting minutes?
I believe DIT made the motion.
Okay.
I'm not sure who gave a second.
It was Sam,
Okay.
isn't it?
Lee did.
Lee did.
Oh, Lee. Okay. I have a question about Alan's amendment. Is that, was that November 15th service in 2019?
2020,
Then why was it in the minutes from the last meeting?
shouldn't be.
I just wanted to be in the report, the annual report, not the minutes.
Okay, but not in the minutes. So this should not be part of the minutes.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. That is helpful. So it should be in the annual report, not the minutes. Thank you. Is there any more discussion of the approval of the 2020 annual meeting minutes? Okay. Are there any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, great. So hearing none, the motion carries to approve the 2020 annual meeting minutes. Thank you all. All right, I will now hand it over to our lovely treasurer, Dawn Marshall, for the treasurer's report and 2021 budget proposal.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, everyone. I will do a quick review of 2020, and then we'll get into the 2021 budget. I'm going to share my screen here. I can. Oh, Holly.
I need to make you co-host, Dom, which I will do immediately.
Okay. See if I can do this correctly. Oh. Okay. You can see that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so this is the 2020 final financial statement. We'll just do a quick look through it. We came in ahead on pledges by close to $3,000, which is terrific. And we also did very well in general contributions, which was a result of folks really stepping up and pledging online throughout the course of the year. And that sort of replaced the loss in cash contributions that we normally get during service. It replaced it and then some. So that was terrific. We also see that under miscellaneous income, we did exceptionally well, and that is in part because of the payroll tax credit, which was part of the first CARES Act. And that gave us a good 14,000 or so in additional income, which was important because we lost substantial income from Kinderhouse being closed. So of the 60,000 that we had anticipated, we got 25,000. So that was a loss of almost a little over 34,000. Some loss on facility use also. So we ended up coming in a little bit behind on income, but we did well with expenses. And that's in part because of the closure of in-person services. We saved some money, saved some expenses along the way. And one of those areas was with utilities, which all came in substantially below or fair bit below where we had anticipated. There was also some savings in the repairs and maintenance line item under buildings and grounds, which was terrific. And so all in all, we ended up with expenses of 314,000, anticipated 342, and that gave us an end of year surplus of just under $16,000. So that put us in a solid position, particularly with the uncertainties around how long Kinderhouse will be closed and just generally how the pandemic might affect our budget going forward. I'll stop here for a second. I know that was a quick review, but does anyone have any questions about 2020 finances? I'll show also just quickly I think this is the right one. Yeah, so this is balances, just so folks can see where we're at in terms of our cash position and investments. We have a strong cash position. And one thing you'll notice under investments is those two negative figures under capital campaign funds. So those were transfers made out of, well, I should say we liquidated parts of the undesignated fund and parts of the contingency fund in order to be able to pay for the capital campaign work, which, as Don will talk about, was accelerated so that we could do it while Kinderhouse wasn't using the basement and while the church wasn't in use, which worked out great. It did require us to put up some money ahead of what we have in income on the capital campaign. But we have those funds and our investments have done very well over the years, so we're in a good position there. Okay, if there are no questions about the 2020 finances, I will move on to the 2021 budget. And here is the 2021 budget. So actually, just yesterday, Robert mentioned that we got some additional pledges. So while the budget approved by the cabinet shows a pledge total of 278,736, we actually have pledges in the amount of 280,236, which is great. I don't know that we need to adjust the budget here for that because there'll be some variability anyway along the way, or at least for approval purposes. We are assuming, I should say, this budget assumes that both the church and Kinderhouse will be closed for 6 months, which I think is a conservative estimate. I think there's a good chance that Kinderhouse will come back online before then, and that we may also, but it's a big unknown. So we wanted to assume at least 6 months of a loss of Kinderhouse income, and then the other various expenses and income effects of being closed. So that means we're budgeting a little bit more for general contributions, which have been coming in higher at a higher level. And then on the miscellaneous income, we also have that budgeted higher because the payroll tax credit from 2020 was extended into 2021 and actually expanded slightly. So we're going to be able to take advantage of that. Again, this assumes 6 months. It may end up being less than that. But if we end up getting less than that because we opened earlier, that will be offset by the increased Kinderhouse rent because they'll be opening earlier also. These things all work as we expect. And so we're assuming about again, half of Kinderhouse rent won't come in. There's a Kinderhouse rent abatement, which is part of the capital campaign. We had anticipated needing to basically kick out Kinderhouse for 3 months. And so part of our contract, part of our agreement with them was that we would abate their rent for 3 months. And while that work took place in 2020, we pushed it forward to 2021 just because we didn't need the cash, and we want to wait until more capital campaign income comes in to be able to cover that. So we're assuming that for 2020. So that also impacts our income bottom line, which we estimate at $360,115. One other note here, you'll notice the carryover surplus. When we were looking at a fairly tight 2020 budget, or concerned that we might have some trouble making the budget balance in 2020, we held off on making the contingency fund contribution for last year. As we got to the end of the year and realized we were in good shape, we decided to make it, but to make it in 2021. So we're doing that by carrying over $3,000 from the 2020 surplus and applying it to this year so that we can make a $6,000 contribution to the contingency fund. That's both 2020 and 2021. So moving down, we've bumped up the mission contributions a little bit because of our strong income situation here. And we're also able to provide a COLA increase for our staff, including Pastor Ellen and Meg. So you'll see that noted here. One of the things that we have done with the 2021 budget, because we are in a very good position with the strong pledge total, along with some of the other income that I mentioned, is to take some of the funds that we don't necessarily need for this year and apply them to a couple different things. One of those things is a sabbatical minister, which we'll need in 2022. We have the funds now, so we're going to just put that aside in a fund, a separate fund to just be held. In previous years, we had paid for the sabbatical minister over 2 years anyway. So this is similar to what's taken place in the past. We're just doing it in one tranche here in 2020. I'm sorry, in 2021. Other items largely remain the same, with some reductions based on lower, assuming we don't have in-person services for a while. We've still tried to, this budget does really fully fund everything we think we're going to need throughout the year, and increases in some areas where we'd like to see some increases. So the other area in which we have put aside money because of the strong income position is you'll notice the bottom of administration, the COVID contingency. And this is the bulk of our expected surplus for 2021. And what we're just doing is putting that into a fund that we essentially would consider emergency use. Should the pandemic cause unanticipated issues and we're closed for longer than 6 months, or there's an issue with Kinderhouse not being able to reopen or having to reopen and then close, or any of those possibilities that we just aren't anticipating, should something like that come up, we've got this money set aside to be able to help us get through that. You'll also notice a line of staff appreciation. We're doing some COVID bonuses to staff because we are able to do that, and everyone has done such an incredible job adapting and working through this. So we feel like that's an important part of what we want to do here. We anticipate some lower expenses on utilities, and then so the bottom line is that we should show a surplus, a small surplus, slightly larger based on the increased pledge total that we got. And we're able to, as I said, fund everything that we want to do, provide COLA increases to take care of our staff. And so all in all, I think, I feel very good that we're in a strong position here going into what is, or continuing what has been a challenging time. Any questions on the 2021 budget?
Before we open it up to questions, just clarifying for our minutes, the 12,000 COVID contingency, if that's not needed, should I note that that could turn into surplus, or how should I note that?
Yeah, I don't know that it needs to be noted
Okay.
in any particular way, because that's just at the end of the year, whatever is surplus and
Okay.
goes into our operating account. So
Awesome.
Don,
Thank you.
yeah.
may I clarify one item? The two people who received the COLA are Meg and I. Other staff had updated contracts that reflected changes in the amount that they are paid, so they did not receive COLAs. And all staff, which does not include clergy, since clergy and staff are considered a separate category, received the COVID bonuses. Clergy did not.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for.
Don, I have a question. What is the, under the mission section, what is OCWM?
That is, thanks for bringing that up, actually, because I wanted to make a note of that. That's our church's wider mission, and that goes to the United Church of Christ, our regional.
I understand. I didn't think at the moment what it stood for. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we bumped that up is because they are struggling as as congregations within our region are struggling. We are in a healthy position. We've had just such generosity from our congregation. And so because we're in that position, we wanted to do our part to support those congregations that are doing as well. So we bumped that up.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Regarding the COVID bonuses, can you put in paid staff received COVID bonuses? I realize, this is Dorothy, that I'm listed as staff, but I'm not paid staff.
That's correct. And it not only does Dorothy not receive a COVID bonus, she donates all of her time in the music director position. And so that is why it says in kind in the budget. That is a huge gift to our congregation. And thank you very much for bringing that up, Dorothy.
Just thank you, just to add paid staff.
Yeah, we'll amend that, include that amendment when we go to approve this. Thanks, Dorothy.
I have a quick question. if there's a $3,500 COVID bonus, but it looks like the amount is only 5,200, how does that add up?
So it's 3,500 plus,
Oh, total?
3,500 is the COVID staff bonuses.
That's the total, right?
I can
And-
explain that.
And
It's not each.
no, that's right. That's the total for all staff.
Okay.
Plus there's,
How much would that be each for each person?
I can clarify that. Depending on a variety of things, mostly how much, we have very, very part-time staff all the way to Meg, who works half-time, and Dorothy, who is of course unpaid staff. And so there were some staff who received $500 bonuses and some who received $250 bonuses. It does not actually equal $3,500. We have a little cushion there. And the reason the line item is $5,200 is that we have traditionally at Christmas time given a, relatively small but important staff appreciation gift to each staff member.
Okay.
other questions? Okay, so why don't we, can I get, or I'll make a motion to amend the budget to include a note on the miscellaneous line item to say includes 3,500 for COVID bonuses to paid staff.
This is dead. I second the motion.
Although, or maybe, am I supposed to call it or does Holly call it?
Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And so, okay, we'll approve that.
Who did the second? Who seconded it?
Yeah.
It? Okay, thank you.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget as amended.
I second. It's Carol.
Thanks, Carol. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Righty. So one really other thing, just to note that one significant development in 2020 was that we put in place a new database called Breeze. And I have to give a lot of thanks to John Tishy in particular, who really spearheaded that. And I have to say, the work that John does to support the finance team, to support me, to keep everything going, operating smoothly is fantastic. And he's probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves, but I just really appreciate it and appreciate him. And the finance team includes Meg, who is terrific and supports us in so many great ways, and Robert, who is terrific when it comes to the investments and managing that side of things. So big thanks to the team. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Don.
You're welcome.
All right, so next I will hand time over to Elizabeth Sheeman, who has done an incredible amount of work behind the scenes to bring a thoughtful pilot leadership model to fruition. Thank you to Elizabeth, as well as Ellen, Dan, Bruce, and Serena for your work on this. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Great. Thank you, Holly, and thanks everybody for allowing a little bit of time for this in the agenda. I am going to drop the link into the pilot proposal handout if that's something you haven't seen yet. please let me know. I think we had really good attendance at a coffee hour conversation on the 17th to prepare for this. So at this time, I'm not expecting to spend a lot of time going into detail because we had a significant conversation then, but wanted you to be able to have that document for reference. At a high level, what we've shared is a recommendation that has been before the cabinet and of course the congregation at the coffee hour to make some key updates to our structure. And I wanted to take a minute just to see if there are any additional questions and to let you know that in the last week and a half, Ellen, Holly, and I have been anticipating those, and we didn't get anything other than a clarification about Ellen's sabbatical and a question about the committees. So if you have questions, now would be a great time to share those with us. And if not, we can move forward with a recommendation. But I want to give a second if anyone has, and I'm flipping through my gallery. So if you're waving, I can't see you, you can yell at me. Awesome. All right. So with no questions being raised now, I believe what we heard from folks was they would like to vote on this so that it gives the congregation a sense that we've accepted it and are planning to move forward with it officially. So because I'm not a member, I would appreciate it if someone would move that the congregation use the proposed pilot model for 1 year beginning today without changing the congregation's bylaws.
I so move. This
Thank
is
you.
Carol.
I'll second.
Thank you, Carolyn Lee. And Holly, I'll let you move forward.
I'm sorry, may
discussion.
I just suggest one amendment? Rather than 1 year from today, at the next, until the next annual meeting, which won't actually be 1 year from today.
That's fine. Yeah,
I'll accept that as a friendly adjustment.
I also second.
And Margaret, do you need anything else from me?
I think I got it. I'm going to have the attachment to our minutes. I think I got it. Let me just, Carol Rogers made a motion to move forward with the pilot leadership model from today until our 2022 annual meeting. Lee seconded.
Is there any
without a change to our bylaws?
Oh, yes, that was an important one. Yep. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
I'll make a comment. I think this is a really strong model. I think the committee did an excellent job tailoring the proposal to the congregation. I think it makes great sense and I strongly support it.
Thank you, Dit. The other piece I'll add just as a point of discussion is we heard a recommendation, I believe from Ed, and I think others felt strongly about it, that there should be time and a process to reflect on this throughout the year so that we don't just wait until December and like, oh, how did this go? So I've reached out to Holly and offered to periodically reach out to the cabinet now council just to flag like, hey, do you have any updates? What would you like me to track? And then to convene with you all at the end of the year also. So just as an update to that process question, we're going to try to be intentional about capturing any modifications or, reflections throughout the year.
We could also check in at the mid-year.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. And thank you again to Elizabeth, who has done so much behind the scenes work on this. I cannot start to say how much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so do I have any objections to the motion to approve the pilot project through our next annual meeting? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, we motion to approve the pilot leadership model for the coming year. Carol will now lead us in nominations and elections of 2021 officers. Carol?
Yes. You all have in your annual reports the proposed list of lay leaders, committee members, staff, etc. Since we've just approved this pilot model going forward, what has been the cabinet is now designated as the council. And there are a few changes to it. And I'd like to just make a couple of comments and, can take any questions or whatever. First of all, we have already approved the election of Holly as moderator for the coming year. Yay, go Holly. We have been really fortunate here at Cleveland Park Church to have an outstanding group of lay leaders, and we are continuing to be fortunate that they are willing to remain in their positions for the coming year. And so those names are on the new council list. And then there are a few changes or additions because of the council designation under the pilot leadership model. Bruce Grimes has agreed to serve as vice moderator and so is on the council list in that capacity. David would be continuing as past moderator, but under the new structure. The past moderator is on the council as a voice, but without a vote. Margaret continues as clerk. Dawn continues as treasurer. Robert continues as financial secretary. Wesley continues as music. Dan continues in his role as head of worship, but that is now a council position. Trish is continuing in the fellowship council position. It had been just a committee of the diaconate. Am I pronouncing that right? Probably not, but close enough. And that now was a council position. Lee has been our member care person and has agreed to continue as the congregation care person, which is now a council position. Maribel is continuing as children and youth. Emily has been heading our adult programs, and that is now a council position. Ashley is continuing as mission and social action. Catherine and Serena continue as co-chairs of buildings and grounds. We have a new council position for communications and technology, and Mark Turner has agreed to serve in that role. And Dawn Blanchard has agreed to continue as chair of the Board of Trustees. It would be time for him to move out of that position, but because of the challenges of the capital campaign, Ellen?
Carol, point of bylaws on that. The trustees will actually have to vote on him. Like the Board of Trustees will actually have to vote on his continued chairpersonship, but he will re-up his commitment as a trustee, and then pending the vote by the rest of them, yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. And under the new system, the trustee chair is on the council, but also with a voice, but not a vote. And so I would like to have a motion for the congregation to approve the new officers and lay leaders for the coming year.
So moved.
Was that it? Thank
Yep.
you. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second.
For Margaret, who was the second? Was that Sam?
Yes.
I also seconded, but yeah, thirded.
Okay. Okay. So is there any discussion?
This
Any
is
objection?
Elizabeth. Sorry, I
Oh,
do have one point I just want to clarify I think everyone knows this, but just to get it on the record, the seats with co-chairs get one vote. So we appreciate people co-serving. And then the other piece that I will point out for those of you who are counters and notice that we wanted to have 15 people, the reason this would total to 14 is that we don't vote on Ellen as our pastor. So just wanted to clarify for folks who are following numbers from the presentation last week.
Right,
Thank
so
you.
I'm a member of the council, and we wanted the council to have 15 votes so that in the event that a tiebreaker was needed.
Any other discussion? Any objections? So hearing no objections based on Serena's suggestion on how we handle this, do we accept our new lay leaders
The motion is
with
approved.
acclamation?
The motion is approved.
Yay. Okay, congratulations, everybody. We've got a really strong team going forward.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you again to our slate of leaders. We greatly appreciate your help. Okay, next I will turn it over to a man who needs no introduction, but I will anyways. Next we'll hear from Don Blanchard, Chair of the Board of Trustees, to give an update. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Moderator Hancock. It's good afternoon, everybody. Let's start with some thank yous. First and foremost to my colleagues on the trustees, Vanessa Andrews, Mary Jane Glass, Heidi Strong Moon, and of course, John Buchanan. You can see from the report in there, there's just a tremendous amount of activity in the first year of the campaign, but for the trustees' work in the last year. And I'm not going to go through the specifics of that. I will highlight a few things in a minute. I want to obviously recognize the amazing efforts and talents of Serena Wilshire and Catherine Stevens, our fearless leaders on the buildings and ground side, for an amazing effort. I want to thank Mary Kurtz, who contributed mightily to the pantry design. And if I can do my thank you as well, Ellen, maybe you could share the pantry photo that you sent me. That would be kind of fun. And then last, but by no means least, the layperson team in Meg, the lay leaders. I want to flag Don Marshall, John Tishy, and Robert Glass. You know, it takes a village to do a campaign, and there's somewhere between 10 and 15 people actively involved in this throughout the year, and I just want to recognize all of them. And so hopefully I covered enough time that Ellen might be able to find the photo, and if she can't, we'll come back to it.
I got it, pulling it up. Hang on.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second. All right. And Catherine tells me, she said, well, this isn't a very good photo. I said, oh my God, it looks great to me. Apparently there's still a little bit more work to be done, but it is gorgeous.
Grateful. And some of you had a chance, obviously, to see the tour from that Serena and Catherine put together via video, I think last week. So thank you for that also. And then finally, the last thank you is to you all. We can't do this without you, your generosity, your engagement. I love the fact that this is an actively engaged group of people. I am hoping we get back to in-person stuff, because I don't think I've answered more questions online about this campaign because of COVID. And so I just assume get in person so that I don't have to spend more time on email. But it has been an amazing year, an absolutely amazing year for the campaign. And so thematically, we talked about making lemonade out of lemons. And that is what we have been doing since the congregation voted at a special meeting last January to approve a resolution for the Second Century campaign. Just remind everybody of our goals. We're trying to raise at least $1 million with 100% participation from the congregation members. We've got priority areas around the building, around accessibility, around mission, and environmental sustainability that are at the heart of our campaign. This year you guys have knocked it out of the park. The numbers are stunning. We have pledged over $848,000 from 47 gifts. So we're about 85% of the way on the pledge number and about 70+% of the way on pledged gifts as expected. The thing that was stunning was just the amount of pledges that were actually paid in part or in full in the first 12 months of the campaign. Dawn showed you that number actually is close to $480,000 now. And we use that cash with 2 small investment draws to be able to fund 2 of the 3 major campaign elements. And remember, this is a 5-year campaign. And we funded 2 of the 3 major elements in the first 12 months. So it's absolutely stunning. I don't think Serena and Catherine could be any happier with us because we have the boiler pipes, HVAC, heating system, and the entire basement in effect renovated in 12 months. On our schedule, we were not supposed to have this work done until the end of 2022. So this is a really significant body of work, and we couldn't have done it without you. And so it's great. We're not going to catch our breath. We're not taking a pause with the building closed. We're going to move forward with one more element, Lord willing, assuming we can work through this in the next 30 to 45 days. And that will be likely to move forward with the accessible first floor bathroom where the current church office is. We have the plans from the architect for that. We have 3 interested parties that may want to bid on that. And we're going to try to accelerate that work and get that work done in the second quarter of this year. And so we'll keep you posted on how that work goes. The trustees, you got a little bit of a break over the last 60 days because of your hard work, but we're about to sharpen our pencils again and go back to work for another 3 or 4 months on this. And so just want to thank everybody again and open it up if anybody has questions or comments or concerns.
I guess my question, Don, would be what, if anything, do you want reflected in the minutes on this topic?
So other than the appreciation and the flagging that we will likely advance the work on the first floor restroom project in the coming year, the thank yous are the most important thing, Margaret.
Okay.
Yep. The board,
Didn't capture the thank yous because we typically don't do that, but noted. Okay.
The Board of Trustees report is really delineated for all the work, and there's no reason to repeat that in the minutes from my.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to understand what, if anything, you wanted. Okay.
Thank you.
John,
Hi, Alan.
I have a question in the chat box for you.
And while Don's reading Alan's question, I will just reiterate what Catherine emphasized when we did the little video tour of the basement. I believe it was last Sunday when she said, "The Leak of the Month Club is out of business." And when it involves sewage pipes, that's a really, really good thing.
Yeah, before we get to Alan's questions, we almost brought back "Oh Danny Boy," by the way. We thought that might come back again. We may do that later when the campaign's over.
We have to bring that back.
That
For those who don't know, Dorothy wrote this incredible song with lyrics focused on the Capitol campaign to the tune of "Oh Danny Boy," and we must do that again.
Yeah. Shifting back to a pragmatic item here. Alan's question is, or comment was, I missed the congregational vote after last year's annual meeting on the 5-year capital campaign. Can that vote somehow be documented in this annual report? I'm going to leave the procedural stuff. I just want to be clear about how the campaign was formally approved by the congregation. And we can go back and look at the minutes or the notes, but we actually did not do the campaign as part of the annual meeting from last year. It was a special meeting of the congregation held immediately following the completion of last year's annual meeting. And the congregational vote was done on a board resolution, which is not something we traditionally do, but we did because of the level of detail here so that everybody would have the same information as well, both the narrative as well as the financials. And so I do not have, Alan, for you, a set of minutes from that discussion. I do know that we have an approved board resolution from a vote taken at that special meeting. And we have the documents on what that all spells out. And Alan, I believe in the Board of Trustees notes at the summary, it says that the congregation approved it after last year's annual meeting.
So what I heard from Alan was, would it be possible to note that in the 2020 annual report? I don't know whether that would go in, I assume that would go under the Board of Trustees section.
It could, yeah. I've got
Alan, does
three,
that,
I got 3 technology devices here. Hold on one sec. I'm just looking at one thing.
I would like to see somewhere the recorded vote on the capital campaign. I understand it was not unanimous.
that's correct, Alan. And we did, I believe that there were 3 votes against it in my memory, but I think it's important that we record that.
Is the suggestion that we include that in the trustees note or some other portion? I just want to make sure I'm following the thread.
I suggested the trustees note, and Alan looks like he's nodding. Okay. So yes,
So,
the trustees note.
So that I'm clear, we want to put a note in on the formal vote as well as the no votes, who no voted, or just the count of no votes?
I'd be satisfied with the count.
Thank you. I'm happy to work with Margaret and Ellen to find the notes from the special meeting and add a sentence or 2 to the trustees report.
Yeah, I would include Meg on that. She's probably our best, our best cataloger.
Hey, did you have a question? Okay. Thank you, Alan.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. That was lovely. And thank you for calling me Moderator Hancock. It felt so good. All right. I will now share an
Give a crown, Holly.
any ideas. Jeff will not be pleased with that. I will now share an update on our strategic plan. Our current strategic plan, Widening Our Welcome, was approved for 2018 through 2021 and can be found on page 24 of the annual report. Given the uncertainties of COVID, Chris Davis, our strategic plan task force leader, suggests it would be best to give ourselves an additional year with this current plan. With this extra time, we can include goals on the updated leadership project, capital campaign renovations, racial justice initiatives, and to be determined capital campaign funded mission project. We plan to present a revised strategic plan for a vote at next year's annual meeting. For the sake of time, I won't go into details of the 2018 through 21 strategic plan, but you can read about all the progress we made on our goals in the annual report. We will continue striving to widen our welcome and nurture love of God and love of neighbor in the world. Are there any questions about the strategic plan update? Fabulous.
So we're saying we're going to continue with the current strategic plan through
the next annual meeting in 2022. We thought it did not make sense to create a 3-year strategic plan this year with all of the uncertainties of COVID.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I now gratefully turn it over to our beloved pastor and all around amazing human, Ellen Jennings, to share the pastor's report.
All right, Moderator Hancock. All right. So, you know, this has been a year, friends. This has been a year, and I am so grateful for this church community. You know, I said it in my sermon already, but I have just been blown away by our congregation's response in all areas, from you showing up on screen Sunday mornings, through your care for me as I go through various trials and tribulations with my progeny, to your willingness to try new things, be that bringing our entire congregational life online. And I can assure you that there are many churches who did not, to being willing to consider a new leadership model for a church that is 100 years old. That's not always an easy thing. Now we're just trying it, but nonetheless, to having our entire basement ripped up and renovated. There are just so many things that have happened this year, and I am grateful to each and every one of you. I am, to continue Holly and Don Blanchard's thanks, I am grateful to, the worship team, the music program, all of our staff, all of our lay leadership. The list really does go on. This year, more so than ever before, I am just in love with this community and who you are and how we are with one another. As I usually do, when I give my pastor's report, I like to acknowledge all of our staff, because many of them, unless you sort of see them on screen or in person Sunday mornings, do their work behind the scenes. So we have and most of our staff is very, very part-time, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So Meg House is our church administrator. She works half-time. Dorothy Mora is our amazing music director, who we acknowledged earlier, donates her services in kind and is also a member of our congregation. We have 4 other music staff people, all of whom work very part-time and bless us every Sunday morning with their music. That's Latia Barrett, Ralph Jennings, who are the 2 soprano and tenor soloists, and Dan Stokes and Harold Walbert, who play organ or piano as needed. We also have our children and youth leaders, Kimberly Catadella, who you do sometimes see on Sunday morning, who does our children's programming. She is our lead Sunday school teacher, and Grandin Purnell, who you saw preach actually last June, but you hardly ever see. And he is our teen group leader, and meets with the teens a couple of times a month, either online or to do a community service activity. He also works for Seabury Resources for Aging, and so he has a great connection there for the teens to do outdoor community service work in a safe, COVID-safe manner. And then finally, Aaron Randolph, who is our church custodian, who is working far less for us now for obvious reasons. Fortunately, he has a full-time job, so this isn't the job on which he depends, but we continue to pay him for the hours that he does work for us. So I'm grateful for each and every one of those staff people, and I guess I will say that I'm very much looking forward to these 3 weeks away that will start tomorrow. You're in beautifully competent hands while I'm away. I have no worries whatsoever. Of course, as always, if there is a pastoral emergency, as I've said, it's not like I'm going anywhere, but other than that, I will not be checking email. So if there is some sort of emergency, you will need to text or call me. And my reasoning for making this decision is that meaning to postpone the bulk of my sabbatical from 2021 to 2022 is both selfish and altruistic. On the selfish side, I want to be able to travel, and I'm really not at all sure that that will be possible this summer. On the more altruistic side, I really think it's important that I am here as our congregation makes our decision about when and how to return to in-person gatherings. And I have a sense that that decision-making process will be happening this summer. So That being said, I hand it back over to Holly, and I am just so stunned and pleased with the fact that we are going to far exceed our commitment to being done by 1:30, and you can all go sledding or have hot chocolate or whatever it is you do this afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ellen, again, so much. And I just want to point out in the chat that Julia Baxter just shared that it is Joseph's first annual meeting. So that is lovely.
He's a double PK, poor child. Preacher's kid.
So is there any other church business for the good of the order? All right. So thank you again to each of you for making our congregation a vibrant and loving community. I actually want to share from the song that Ralph shared this morning, "O God of Vision," which is one of my favorite songs that I've learned at our church. The second verse goes, "Pour out your spirit on all now assembled before you. May our diversity here be a means to adore you. Women and men, young, old, and faithful again, make us as one, we implore you." And this really sums up how I feel about our church. Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Our church is made stronger by your unique talents and the gifts you bring to the life and works of our church. I want to again thank David for his leadership as moderator, as well as the entire leadership team for guiding our church this year. Thank you to everyone on the cabinet, which we will be pilot project testing calling council from here on out. The Board of Trustees, all our committee leaders and committee participants who do so much behind the scenes work. Thank you to each member of our staff, including our musicians, youth coordinators, and church custodian. Thank you to Meg House, as Ellen mentioned, our church administrator, who's done an incredible job taking us virtual this year. A huge, huge thank you to Dorothy Mora, who continues to donate her time and talent to what would normally be a salaried position. We cannot thank you enough for your musical gifts and leadership. Last but not least, thank you, Ellen, for pastoring to us with integrity, wisdom, and profound grace this year. We are so grateful for your vision and leadership. How did we get so lucky? As we look forward to the year ahead, let us be bold in our visions of what the kingdom of heaven might look like here on earth. Let us be steadfast in making life-affirming choices as we await a time where we can hug in person and widen our welcome online. Let us continue our commitment to foster love of God and love of neighbor in the world. May we work together, worship together, and grow together as fellow followers of Christ. Do I have a motion to adjourn the 2020 annual meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second? Thank you, Nancy. I see your hand raised. All right. Is there any discussion? Just checking. All right. So without, are there any objections or abstentions?
Okay, what's Nancy's last name?
Paulu. P-A-U.
Oh, there's Nancy. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful.
Holly, I just want to say that I look forward to working with you closely in the next year, and it'll be exciting.
Thank you, Bruce. I look forward to working with you as well. And I selfishly hope that the pandemic ends so that one day I can go back to your and Dawn's house and have your crab dip again, because I still think about it 3 years later. All right, so hearing no objections, we are now going to officially adjourn our 2020 annual meeting. 2021 annual meeting. Thank you all so much.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you all. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, David.